Going on, everyone? We're back with another developing stream. We gotta figure out how we're gonna make things catch on fire. We gotta make the I actually forget exactly what we're doing, but that's pretty common, I guess. I think I think we've reached another, like, kind of a dead end when it comes to the amount of stuff we can implement um without, like, recreating the entirety of, like, modern physics. I think it's another one of those moments. Oh wait, we renamed this to oxidation reaction, right? Yeah, so we were trying to figure out how we determine when it catches on fire and, like, how much energy, how much heat is released when it does catch on fire. But that varies with a bunch of stuff. Yes, I am online, Dino. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. So again, is it possible to have it vary with density, because that's going to be pretty important. I was actually watching, like, a YouTube video where it was talking about how when, like, a spaceship re-enters Earth's atmosphere, it gets, like, extra hot than it would normally get, because, like, the way the shuttle is pushing on the air, like, kind of compresses it, um which makes it even more hotter, even more hot. um so density does have a very noticeable impact, so I would like to try and incorporate that somehow. I finished my first day of school today. Nice, Dino. How did it go? I hope it went well. But wait, we could is in terms of the density thing, we could do that through other mechanisms in this system. We don't have to do it here. We just need to determine, like, how much energy is released. Yeah, wait a minute. The ratio of density to auto ignition temperature. If we just use the auto ignition temperature, oh well, that's density, not pressure, but, like, they kind of are similar. And it was so fun. I'm really excited for the new school. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Dino. I think it's fair to say that there are some online schools that are worse than others, and it sounds like you probably are going to a really good one. So, congrats. Did I hear spaceship? I recently got Lego set 31134. I'm not sure what Lego set that is, but yeah, I'm trying to well, the reason I brought up spaceships was because when spaceships re-enter Earth's atmosphere, they basically pressurize the air that they're pressing against as they fall, I think, which causes the temperature to rise a lot more. And I was basically saying, because the effect can be so noticeable in real life when the density increases, or density, yeah, increases, then we probably want to represent that somehow with our oxidation reaction here. However, the temperature should be fine. If you type it in Google, it will pop up, but yeah, they're going down faster than going up. I think that, huh. I think if the air is squashed somehow around, like a fire, it would be an increase in temperature and an increase in the availability of an oxidizer that would both increase the rate of the reaction. So, yeah. Too much smart works right now. it has been. I've actually been doing a fair amount of like research into physics and stuff. And it's kind of interesting, Dino, because with what I'm trying to do, there is just like not enough information, at least on the internet, to like calculate all of this stuff or like measure all of this stuff. Like I need to apply like, okay, how do I say this? I'm basically using a template to basically define all of the different elements in the game. Which means every single element is going to need all the same kinds of information, just specific to that element. So every element is going to need a boiling temperature. Every element's going to need a melting temperature. Every element's going to need a density value. And the problem is, not all of those values have been measured for all substances known ever in the universe. So I have to make compromises in this system. Maybe I could just write the amount of density required. Really don't know. I mean, I could go with this auto ignition ratio thing. Hope you can pull through this. Talking about science things, my school sent a microscope, and it's so cool. I've looked at cells. That does sound pretty cool. I remember the first time, like I was surprised because I remember one time I got like this science kit, and it said, "Oh, there's like a microscope in the box," and I was like, "Okay, cool, whatever. Maybe it'll have like 3 times magnification, and you can look at like grains of sand or something with like higher detail or higher fidelity." But no, I opened up the box and it was like this flimsy little plastic microscope. And I set it up and I was actually able to see, I feel like, I don't know if I could see cells. I don't know if I could see individual cells, but I could see it was like a very high magnification. I was surprised with how legit of a microscope it was. But like the first time you set up your own microscope is actually pretty fun. I mean, making a game takes a really long time, right? Making a game takes a lot of work, a lot of effort. Now, if you're making a game that also requires you to develop a new model for physics, or like, I guess if you're incorporating quantum mechanics, it would be easier. But like learning about or like recreating, not recreating, but creating new physics discoveries, like building up an entire branch of science on top of that is like, that would definitely be more work. Because you have to like test all of that stuff in real life. Like you have to set up experiments and everything. It's a lot of effort. You can look at things 4 times, 10 times, and 40 times. So far, I've collected 1 sample. Nice. I feel like you'd enjoy that with like the bug or the, I forget what the term is, like the bug city that you set up in the jar or something like that. Sounds like a similar genre of activity. It's a leaf, and I'm happy with my leaf. That's a good object to look at under a microscope. Probably has a visible cell structure. Terrarium. Yes, thank you. All right, so I want to use, I guess I could use an auto ignition ratio here. I forget what I calculated for, oh, no, here it is. Cool. Cool. So that is the auto ignition ratio for wood. I think we'll stick with the auto ignition ratio. I suppose we also need to decide how much heat is released. And that would determine. So oxidation is essentially when the electrons move between atoms. It could probably happen on a super atomic level as well, though. Like in certain situations, I'd imagine. Well, I don't know, actually. I don't have enough information to really say. I don't have enough knowledge to really say that. Um, However, I know it happens between atoms, like when the electron goes from one atom to another. I'm gonna look at a frog. I'm gonna look at frog blood again. It comes in the kit. All right, that will be an interesting experiment. Um, but if electrons go from one atom to another, the energy output there obviously it's gonna be like a snapping, like an elastic or like a rubber band. If you pull a rubber band and you let go, and then all that energy like combobulates or whatever, it's gonna be a similar kind of energy transfer. Um, the problem is different configurations of different kinds of atoms, and different configurations of atoms, and different everything of atoms, um, basically affect how like sticky the outer electron shell is. Um, and the same applies for the oxidizer atom as well. So it kind of like has like an equal and opposite whatever kind of effect. Uh, that will basically affect the amount the rubber band is pulled, essentially, in that analogy. Um, which means figuring out the energy output is going to be another challenge. Another challenge. Another thing we're going to have to approximate. Seriously, a lot of this stuff you just can't do without like a fundamental sort of simulation of like a very reliable model. But I can't simulate quantum atoms. Or that's not it's gonna be too much for this project. I think that'd be a little too much, guys. I think that'd be a little too much to add to my indie game where you play as a dragon in a 2D pixel art environment. That's supposed to be a portfolio project. Oh my god. Um we could probably do something similar to the auto ignition ratio, like an oxidation output ratio or something. I don't know. The ratio of density to auto ignition temperature. It's dumb because auto ignition is determined by the energy input and output levels. Yeah, how would I even determine the temperature of the fire? Okay, I can try doing some research. What determines the heat released from a fire between two elements? Okay, released from a fire. Wait, what? The heating value of a substance, usually fuel or food, is the amount of heat released during the combustion of a specified amount of it. Although this isn't oxidation, the calorific value is the total energy released as heat when a substance undergoes complete combustion with oxygen under standard conditions. I don't know if we're going to have the exact value I want here. There's multiple methods of figuring it out listed here. The heating value of a fuel can be calculated with the results of ultimate analysis of fuel. These formulas are readable, but there's a lot of constants in them. Also see a dino. Huh. And like the more information I have to store about individual elements, the more difficult it's going to be to find it for all the different elements or like come up with it. Oxidation also releases a small amount of energy, right? That we don't have to represent that. We don't have to worry about that. Actually, like the heat that something releases when it rusts. In fact, we're probably not even gonna implement like rusting unless the player's gonna like sit there in game for 2 years and watch something rust. It would be really cool though, if we added magic to be able to control those sorts of things. So maybe, like, you could use a time speeding spell, which does things. That would also like we might also want to add like plants being able to grow and stuff like that. We did something like that. It's gonna take me 78 years to finish this game. Fire's not really measured by temperature, but by heat release rate. Sure, that's acceptable. Flame can have multiple temperatures within it. Can we get the... Okay, we're looking at the answers. Hmm. The density of fire. Hold on. Why does fire glow? What is going on here? I'm assuming it would be like the byproducts of the reaction, which are hot and therefore emitting photons, right? Unburnt fuel. Okay. I mean, I'm assuming once the heat gets high enough, it could just like rip the atoms off of the molecule, right? Pyro, what is it? What's the word? Pyro, I don't know. What's the word for when something decomposes through fire? No, that's not it. Pyrolysis? No, is that the word? What? What is this? This old theory about fire. Phlogiston. Okay, irrelevant. Um, is it pyrolysis? This is no longer a game development stream. I hope you all know that. Thermal decomposition without oxygen. Separation of covalent bonds and organic matter by thermal decomposition within... Okay, okay. I guess I kind of understand it a bit better now. So it applies to organic matter, and it's when it's just so hot that, like, the atoms fall off or something. I don't know. I actually don't know what it means still. Now, I saw on this website that it's kind of not It's kind of the amount of fire that's released that is the temperature, which actually doesn't make sense because if the phenomenon of fire is, or the light from fire is caused by the fuel basically heating up, particles of the fuel heating up and then glowing, well then they can, the temperature for that isn't fixed, so it's not like the more that you have, the temperature rises, right? Maybe if I think about it more fundamentally. No, I feel like their thermal vibrations would be like the same. Like they don't add together. Like if you have two chunks that are the same temperature and you put them together, that's still the same temperature. Okay. All right. So if we could just determine the overall heat release rate for like a given surface area or something like that. How to determine the heat emitted by a fire without knowing the fuel source. No, I don't want to measure anything. I don't do anything. I don't have hands or legs. I don't do anything. I don't interface with the real world. I'm an elite gamer. Everything I do is digital, not analog. Or nothing, and nothing I do is analog. I do feel like my part of my brain's understanding about the world has been shaped by spending so much time like playing games and on computers and stuff. Sometimes after playing a game for like a while where you can like save scum or something, like I'll get up and I'll go and do something and I'm like, it'd probably be useful to do a quick save really fast before I do what I'm about to do, like just doing activities in real life, and then I realize, wait, you can't do that in real life. That's not a thing. Um, I feel like it's probably like shaped my understanding, or not my, I don't want to say my understanding, but like my brain's perception about things a lot. Like I think it's part of the reason why I prefer digital writing versus like using paper documents, which I feel like those could get destroyed easier. Okay, let me just look up how much heat is released by a wood fire. Per gram? Could we do it per gram? So when a gram burns, oxidizes, whatever, it releases that much energy. We could do it per gram. That could work. I was going to do it per surface area, like per second, but per gram could work as well. I think it's going to depend on what is most commonly used. Also, this is an AI overview, so evil. Let me find an actual source here. Oh, but it like fluctuates or whatever. No. No. Damn it. Bonfires have produced temperatures of 1,100 degrees Celsius. Okay, can we get a source for the AI overview? Isn't that what these links mean? Oh, they appear on the right. Char oxidation in timber. The heat of combustion is defined as the energy released when a unit mass of a sample is oxidized completely to produce stable products. Okay. Values for the heat of combustion of wood range from 16.6. Well, this is interesting because the temperature actually would be consistent. You wouldn't have to worry about as many variables within like a certain chunk of matter, right? Because again, the atoms are, you know, kind of the same. I guess it could also depend on like maybe the density of the wood or different factors maybe, but I feel like it would be less variable. And you could basically just say regardless of how dense the oxygen is, you know, that's going to determine the rate of combustion. But once we burn a gram of a substance, then we can basically decide. Well, then the temperature release at that point is going to be consistent. It's going to be like, you know, this amount per gram. Now, of course, it probably does vary depending on different factors, but I feel like that could be accurate enough. So that is a potential option right there. Kilojoules per gram. I think I might do joules per gram. Wait, newtons versus joules. What is the difference? Okay. So joule is energy transfer. Right. Right. Okay. So if we can get the amount that's burning within a given time span, we can then calculate the energy transfer. Oh, but it would be good to... It would be good to know this as a temperature. So now we're able to determine the heat as joules. Didn't know that was a thing you could do. Okay. That's energy transfer. It's not temperature. Can you convert heat energy transfer as joules to Celsius somehow? What? This is crazy. This is like a whole void of context in my brain that I like don't understand this stuff. Cuz like okay, I'm looking at a Reddit thread and I've experienced basically like writing about something and then waiting a year and then writing about that thing again and like being aware of how your ideas about the thing change. And I can tell that this person writing this has had a lot of those iterations, specifically about, I guess, thermodynamics. Um, they're like a level 100 thermodynamics systologist, and I'm like a level 2 thermodynamics sociologist. It's a real term, by the way. That being said, is there an answer here? Okay, isn't that what like heat capacity is? Like the amount it changes when an energy input is given? Heat capacity of substance. The amount of heat energy needed to raise the temperature of an entire object by 1 degree Celsius or Kelvin. Perfect. So that's what we can use. We can use this specific heat capacity to, this is insane, to determine how much the temperature of a certain object is going to rise. I'm assuming we can do something similar for conductivity. In fact, I might want to just blueprint really quickly some functions to use in component. Of course. Yeah, we'll make a function here. We'll call this add heat energy amount float. And this will be in joules. And then I'll just do like a little to-do list here. Because we are going to have to add the heat capacity for every element. It's going to be another thing where we do it for every element ever in existence. I hope that doesn't become too unmanageable. Like, if we can have 100 values per element, we could manage that. That could be manageable. And we have, like, 100 elements in the game. That's, like, what, 10,000 values I'm going to have to enter in? It won't feel that bad when I actually go to do it. Okay, like Minecraft. You can easily place 10,000 blocks in Minecraft. It's totally doable. Isn't it kind of interesting, though, how, like, in certain contexts, we can be happy to just, like, sit down and do the same repetitive action for, like, hundreds of thousands of iterations, or, like, tens of thousands of iterations, but then, like, super basic things we just don't feel like doing. Or maybe I'm speaking from my own experience. But, like, I can sit down and place down tufts, modeled tufts of, like, or sculpted tufts of hair on, like, a 3D model for, like, hours and hours and days and do it, you know, tens of thousands of times. I don't know exactly what the amount actually is, but it could probably get up to that number depending on what you're doing. But then, like, I don't know. Trying to think of something. Trying to think of something that is a task that is annoying. Any annoying task, okay? Any annoying task that you don't feel like doing. Folding laundry. Which takes way less time. It just depends on, like, our different motivations for doing things, I guess. Like, a lot of that stuff doesn't even feel like a side quest. It just feels like grinding, or like the shit you have to get through to get to the content. The puzzles, if you don't like puzzles in games. Which I'm not a huge fan of puzzle games as a genre, but something like Trailmakers, you could say that's a puzzle, like solving this certain problem or something by making your own machine is a puzzle. But when it's like one solution and you're going through like a bunch of pre-made like steps, like in Resident Evil or something like that, I don't really enjoy it that much. I guess I can't. I guess I can't say that. But if it's the basis for like an entire game, like I feel like I wouldn't enjoy Portal that much. Like I would have more enjoyment from just like playing with the Portal mechanics than actually going through the game using the portal mechanics and like solving the different puzzles. I don't know. Who knows though? Who knows? Maybe I'm not super opposed. Okay, if a puzzle is like the main thing about a game, then it's not very appealing to me. There, that's what I'll say. Okay, well, we have this function for later implementation, so we don't forget that heat capacity is the relevant thing for that. Go back to our oxidation reaction. Right, so energy release of substance combustion in joules per gram. I think we'll actually keep the auto ignition ratio. So I guess we can enter in that value that I found in that one source. Then like the fire itself can kind of have its own temperature. Wait. I don't know. We'll say 32 for wood. A lot of the different reactions we're probably gonna have to approximate and stuff. Punch my microphone. I wonder if you can calculate the difference in temperature from a increase in pressure. Difference in wait, is that a thing? I feel like it would just improve the conductivity. Actually, that's what I intuitively want to say. Why does it increase the temperature? Actually, yeah, wait, what? Why does pressure increase temperature? Molecules will move faster. I mean, I guess if you think of it as like a bouncing thing or like some sort of, I don't even know. Thank you for the follow, Antonio. If you think of it as like some kind of bouncing mechanism, welcome. And like you, what's that like atomic trampoline that YouTubers make? And then I think Nile Red made one, but basically you drop the ball into the tube, the ball bounces, and then you move the other thing, and then it bounces up and down faster and faster. Maybe it's like that. I don't know. By the way, you're talking with someone. I am talking to myself. I've been talking to myself for 40 minutes straight. Well, Dinah was in here earlier. But no, right now I am thinking out loud. I still don't understand exactly why it increases though. I'm trying to figure out why temperature increases with pressure right now. Because this is a game development stream and that's very relevant for game development. I love people like you, man. We're pretty cool. We're pretty cool. Thank you though. Why would pressure affect temperature? Reddit, help me. The molecules... Okay, it's saying the molecules will move faster, but why, though? Temperature is proportional to the average kinetic energy of molecules. No. Oh my god. My brain cannot connect the dots here. What the hell? The game is a game where you play as a dragon. Here, let me show you. I mean, if it's like the atomic trampoline example, then, you know, that's understandable enough. You play as a dragon, but you start off as a level 1 dragon, which looks like a lizard. Right now I'm trying to get combustion working in the new chemistry engine I'm making. It's kind of like a recreation of the old chemistry engine. But the idea is that it is a roguelite, and every time you die, every time you start a new run, you get an opportunity to add upgrades to your dragon. So you can change different things. You can add like sub upgrades, so you can specify the behaviors of certain upgrades using different upgrades, which kind of lets you build out your own upgrade tree. Like if I added more of these, they would like branch out, create like this cool circular kind of thing. It could create a layout similar to Path of Exile, but here's like a new dragon build, a new configuration. And it's like physics based, so you can use the environment and stuff like that. Those sorts of interesting things. Wow, those barrels are really moving. I need to change the physics calculations for the friction, because right now I'm just using damping, or dampening, which is way too slow. And yeah, you can, like, the idea is that everything is destructible, and you can basically develop different techniques, or different methodologies for, I guess, different builds. Builds might be the best word. Different builds that are designed to accomplish a certain goal, and then that creates synergies with the different, like, dynamic mechanics within the world. So, like, the chemistry engine is going to be one of those mechanics, and maybe you make a dragon that sets things on fire a lot, and then, you know, utilizes the mechanic in that way. That's the idea. You look like Peter Parker. I have not heard that before. Which one? There's many Peter Parkers. That's funny, though. There's well, are you talking about, and also are you talking about a live action Peter Parker? There's in terms of live action ones, there's Tobey Maguire, right? Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland. Maybe there's like some other ones. Tom Holland. I'll take that. That's acceptable. I've never been told I look like Tom Holland before. I don't know if anyone has ever seen the movie The Impossible, but that was actually the first time I saw Tom Holland in a movie. And it was kind of before he became, you know, such a large actor, a well-known actor. I also really liked The Devil All the Time. Although I feel like if you don't like watching movies, so you can say like, "Wow, this is so deep." Like if you don't like do that with movies, you would not like that movie, The Devil All the Time, because if you're watching it with like a I just want to be entertained mindset, you're gonna be like, "This is the most depressing thing I've ever seen in my entire life." And there's a lot of movies like that. I mean, it was an entertaining movie. Like the storytelling was captivating, but there are a lot of movies that could be considered depressing to the point where you would question why it would even be made if you have like a certain mindset for watching the movie. I guess The Impossible is kind of like that too, actually. I still don't understand why temperature increases with pressure. And does it apply to solids? It probably applies to solids, if I had to guess. Look up the Joule-Thomson effect for a diabatic slash isenthalpic. I've never heard either of those words before. Expansion of gas. The number of collision between molecules. But if that was the case, like it would be the same amount of energy. They'd just be bouncing off each. What? Your younger version of Tom? I can see that. Well, I can't see it, but I understand what you're saying. Like, I believe that you think I have a resemblance to a younger version of Tom Holland. Are you British? No, I'm not British. Who makes up all these rules about physics? What the hell? Who invented this stuff? Who invented gravity? Are you Japanese? I'm not Japanese. I am United States American in United Statesian. That is what I am. Are you eagle? Am I an eagle? Are you asking if I'm an eagle, or are you asking something else? Because if you're asking if I'm an eagle, I'm not. I don't think so. I wouldn't say so. Okay, wait, this person might actually be thinking in the same way I'm thinking about it. Imagine a box with a bunch of molecules inside. The molecules aren't at absolute zero temperature, so they're moving around inside the box, occasionally hitting the box wall. The molecules are exerting force against the wall. You could say on average the wall is feeling the force divided by the area of the box. Something newtons per square meter. Also, if you increase the temperature, the molecule impacts become more forceful, so larger force divided by the same area as before equals more pascals. Um, I could kind of understand that. It's like the same amount of energy in a smaller space. That okay. Like thinking about it through that lens helps. I feel like I have enough contextual information about it now to like understand it on some level. Why am I even trying to figure this out right now though? Auto ignition ratio, energy release of substance, combustion. I think I was trying to find like a specific formula for changing temperature with density. Can I calculate how to calculate temperature change with density change? Density is a function of temperature. A function of temperature. Um what does that mean? A function that determines temperature? We're not talking about programming functions anymore, so I have an empty spot in my brain. How long have you programmed for? Probably like I mean the earliest time I programmed my first attempt it might have been like 10 years ago. Um but like doing it pretty consistently, I want to say like 6 years. But even then I feel like I did some stuff with programming before that. Programming was probably the first programming is probably the thing I've done the most. I don't know if I want to say that actually. So you started as 15 years old. I probably started like the first thing I did when I was like 10 or something. The first engine I really got into was Construct 2, but I did like a coding camp before that. I might have used Scratch. I don't remember which came first. I don't remember like the first game engine I opened up. Scratch first. It would make more sense from the perspective of like that would be easier than Construct 2. I'm trying to remember what I made in Construct 2. I made some interesting prototypes. I feel like I definitely did stuff before that though. Like I made this one prototype where there was like this giant animal, kind of like Subnautica, think like a Subnautica Leviathan, on like this alien planet, and you were in like this exosuit, this spherical exosuit, exploring the planet. It was very Subnautica inspired. Um, I think it was gonna be like kind of a survival game. I don't remember though. I've had so many ideas over the years. Because you can sit down for like 10 minutes and think of like 50 different ideas. I'm trying to actually follow through with one of them though. That is the idea with this game. I've been following through for 194 days now. Okay, Physics Stack Exchange, my favorite website ever. If you know density at some temperature T, there's the following formula for density. Ah, wait. This is for calculating the density, though. I guess density would decrease with temperature, unless the pressure was higher. Maybe I should specify pressure then. With pressure. Yeah. I was making Minecraft mods as a 14-year-old, and when I turned 17, I stopped. And I miss Java, honestly. I'm 21 now. I did some stuff with Minecraft mods. I remember one of the Minecraft mods I used like some software. I forget what it was. Um, but I was trying to make a like medicine mod, or not even like I wasn't even approaching it from like the perspective of medicine. It was more like a witchcraft, but like with medical instruments mod, where like you can have different like chemicals and stuff, and you can use them through various means, and they would like have different effects on the place. So you could have like it basically like potions, but you could have like one potion type, and you could put it in a syringe, or you could put it in a dart that you could shoot out of a bow and arrow, or you could that's actually not that could work with the way Minecraft is set up. Or maybe you would have some sort of you would put it into a sponge, and then the sponge would emit a gas that has that thing in it, and it would apply some kind of effect. I don't know exactly, not like homeopathics. That's like a pseudoscience, isn't it? But it was basically like using drugs to help you become stronger, like Fallout or something like that. But like the idea was that it would be very reusable and dynamic and cool and whatever, because you could use it in all these different forms and stuff. It would kind of like multiply the amount of use cases. But I never finished it. I think that was one mod idea I had. I also wanted to make a mod where you were basically able to like craft any weapon using like a bunch of different pieces. So like you could have a short handle piece and then a long handle piece, and then you could have like a hammerhead section, or maybe like an axe head section, maybe like a spearhead section, and you could just put it in the crafting grid, and it would handle any configuration of like any group of pieces. Which means conceptually, you could just build a tool which is like a 3x3 grid of sticks. But I wasn't able to finish that either. That was another idea I had. I wish I could remember the name of the software I used. It was like, it might have been like Mine something. Let me see if I can just look it up really quick. Minecraft mod making software. Is it still like prevalent? M Creator? I think it was M Creator. That's the first search result I got. The best Minecraft mod maker ever. Yeah, I think it was M Creator. And I started using M Creator at that coding camp. I also made a game in Scratch where I think it was called Shooting Cheese. That's what the game was called. And it was basically two yellow circles on either side of the screen, like the left and right, that would move up and down, kind of like Pong. But you would shoot these little pellets at each other that would just travel in a straight line, and it would move across the screen. And you have to dodge the pellet while like firing your own pellets. And whoever was able to hit the other cheese, I guess I just called it cheese because I just made it yellow, and it was just super lazy. Um, but whoever hit the other person's cheese first won. There were some other projects like that. The only projects I've ever finished completely have been like really small projects. But I guess it's kind of like nice to me though that I was able to finish some projects. I've also like finished assets and stuff, but that doesn't count. That doesn't count. You need to finish you need to finish a release. You need to make a release or something. These are the rules. Okay, I want to be able to figure out how to calculate the temperature with pressure. Constant amount of gas in a closed and rigid container. Calculates both? I'm looking into Gay-Lussac's law for the volume or the density and temperature of gases with the changing of the temperature and the gases. Please don't be too difficult for me to understand. Within 10 seconds. There's also Avogadro's law. I don't know what that one does. Relationship between volume and amount of gas at constant temperature and pressure. Boyle's law, Charles' law, Michael's law, John's law, David's law, Aaron's law. Those ones I made up. Charles' law I didn't make up, but after Charles' law I made all those up. Bob's law. Herman's law. That sounds official. Okay, how do we do this? How do we calculate? I need to calculate. Combining volumes. I don't want to combine volumes of gases. The proportionality of the volume. I don't even think this isn't what I'm looking for. I don't think. Pressure and temperature. Is the ideal gas equation. What are we trying to calculate here? Oh, here's where the variables are defined. Oh, never mind. What is all this other pressure per volume? Is that what this is? I really need to learn about how like formulas work. Pressure of an ideal gas inside a container is directly proportional to the temperature. Oh, I think I should run the ad break now. Now is like the perfect timing. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'll be back in 3 minutes and continue losing my sanity. All right, I'll be back in 3 minutes. Is it gonna go? Let's see. I clicked the button. The button has been clicked. Clicked it. Okay, I'll be back in 3 minutes. All right, is it over? Is the break over? I hope so. I just thought about something kind of cool. Like if there was a spell, and I think I've mentioned this before. I've talked about this idea before. God damn it, the cord is messed up. Okay. Basically, like the idea is if I added a spell to that the dragon could use, where you can convert something to any element, like for visualization purposes, like the Midas touch, like you touch the guy touches the thing and it turns into gold, something like that. And I thought that'd be kind of cool to add, like if you could cast a spell on enemies and like turn them into stone or something like that, or any element you want, you could turn them into like I don't know, some sort of explosive gas and then use that to kill other enemies or something if you wanted to. The issue is I could see situations where Like if you could convert anything to anything, you could burn wood and that would produce ash. Then you could convert the ash back to wood and then keep burning it over and over again and kind of produce like infinite energy that way. I don't know if this is going to be a problem. We don't have a lot of mechanics in our game like that store energies for long-term usage. Like it's not like oxygen not included where, you know, that could be a problem if the amounts can increase exponentially, but I could see a lot of potential exploits with a system like that. Like there, I could see some sort of glitch or exploit where it's like how to do infinite DPS with dragon build, using converting ash back to wood to create infinite heat or something like that. So maybe what we should do instead is create a like conversion temperature. This does kind of feel like creating a new model for physics in certain ways. Like that core difference we established where every element is just like kind of its own fundamental particle or its own fundamental thing in this game's physics world, whatever. In this game, in this world building setting, every element is like its own fundamental thing, as opposed to like an elementary particle or something like that, like a proton, which might even be composed of other particles. I don't know, whatever the most fundamental thing is. And I think a photon is an elementary particle. Yeah, it's definitely an elementary particle. Is a quark like on the same level as a photon? I'm not sure. But where was I going with this? Yeah, elements are kind of like that. Like they're their own fundamental thing. So, I mean, with that assumption, we're going to have to make some changes already and make some decisions about how the physics in this game is going to work. It just has to be comparable enough to real life to be, like, convincing. Like, you have to be able to heat up a piece of wood and have it catch on fire. Like, that kind of stuff. The bare minimum. I'm willing to accept some crazy, unpredictable behaviors, like some, I don't even know what I could, you know, what could happen, because it would be unpredictable. That's kind of the point, I guess. Um, but I'd like to minimize it if possible. It's going to be kind of a battle, basically. But yeah, to solve that problem I was talking about with like the infinite conversion of elements. I mean, if you can convert one element to another, you're already going to be changing the energy levels there, even if the mass is the same. Because different elements are going to have different energy outputs in different contexts. So we might just have to accept that or not add the ability to, or remove the ability to convert between elements in that way. I think we'll just accept it. Although keep an eye on it because, you know, we can't completely alleviate it, but there's probably some things we can do. So for example, maybe instead of an energy release, I could use some sort of conversion energy release between different elements. So that way when we convert back to wood, well then it would just add more energy. What? Okay, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. We're gonna need a lot of mechanisms to dissipate energy. Maybe we can have the mana cost scale with the amount of energy output or the amount of energy in a system. So it kind of has like a soft limit. Did I say mana costs? because that's what I meant. Like the mana cost will increase as you do something more and more like, you know, energetical. Although, what's to stop the dragon from just like making an infinitely small thing and giving it a ton of energy and then like doing a bunch of damage to an enemy just by concentrating all that energy into a really small place? Maybe there'll be like a precision limitation as well. Maybe if you increase your precision level, you can do more precise spells. I don't know. Maybe there should be, maybe you should be able to level it up in both ways. Like both through the I don't really have a term for them yet. But like the different methodology levels, essence levels, and upgrades by spending the essence. Maybe you should be able to upgrade it either way. That might actually be a good way to handle it. Like the issue I was talking about before, where the essence levels sort of like take priority over the upgrades because like, you know, it kind of makes it redundant if you can just get it through, or if you can only get it through um essence levels and not, you know, the upgrade menu. Basically, I don't want to limit the utility of the upgrade menu. The whole point is that it can do a bunch of different cool stuff, and we're trying to get the most bang for our buck in terms of things we implement. So maybe the approach will just be to get additional bonuses on top of what you already have in the upgrade tree from the essence levels. That might be a good way to do it. What am I trying to do? Right. So at this point, we could start incorporating the energy transfers if we wanted to. So what that would look like is basically every element here would have its temperature increase. Every element in the reaction context. This is why we made a local system for every single object in our atmosphere implementer. So that we could increase the temperature locally of the atmosphere. So the air, only the air around it can increase or will increase in temperature. And our reaction, our context will give us access to all the components. So you do need to determine the rate of combustion, though. How do we do that? Yeah, wait. The rate of combustion. How do we know how fast it's gonna burn? Like, that's just the auto ignition temperature right there. Damn it. Okay, we might need something else here. Shoot. That is unfortunate. Yeah, how do we want to do that? Well, probably determines... It's probably determined a little bit by the surface area, right? I would imagine. Let me look up how fast wood burns. Let me just see. See, there's all these things you have to account for. Like, this is not as simple as just writing a system for a game. You need all of this real-world information. In grams per second. Sure. Can I just define? Can I just make it up? Like we could use another ratio here. Like the conversion ratio, perhaps. Also, would this would the auto ignition temperature decrease with a higher fuel density? I don't know. It's gonna depend on the state of matter, right? If they're both gases, then probably. Shoot. But it's the that's because the density of a solid isn't going to change as much anyways, right? And if the density was higher, it would also probably be harder for it to release electrons, right? There's so many things to account for here. Ultimately, it's not about the density, right? It's about the surface area. We're kind of like square density, sorta. Like the amount of the element that's touching per unit, per square unit. The force would also affect it, right? It's a bunch of things that would affect it. Well, how do we want to do this? Now, obviously, some elements need to burn quicker than others. Some elements should be explosive. We could have like an auto ignition burn rate, or just burn rate, I guess I could call it. It could be in grams per second. We might just do that. It would increase though. It would increase with various information. Joules per gram. Also, I should say substance oxidation, not combustion, because this will also be used for oxidation. Combustion is a type of oxidation. This is the problem. We can't convert temperature back to like energy units, like newtons. So it's going to be more difficult to determine. I mean, I guess we could use Celsius. What I'm proposing that we have a mass release per temperature unit or something, which basically determines the speed. So it would be, if it's like 1 gram per degree Celsius, that means at 300 degrees Celsius, it would be burning at 300 grams per second, which is way too fast for wood, probably. Um, Wait, but it also applies over a certain surface area, right? If we can get the temperature, if we can get the average temperature of like of a volume or a certain mass of a substance, then we could just determine it using that. Oh god. Oh my god. There's a lot of stuff. Um this is crazy. Okay, this will be the burn rate. Grams released. Grams converted per second. Um per temperature unit. So like for wood. Oh, but this would damn it. Whoa, what just happened? What? It would have to have some kind of connection to like the volume or the surface area or something. I feel like we'd have to calculate the surface area. Grams converted per second per temperature unit. Per degree Celsius, I'll say. But then we also need like basically a surface area component to this. Converted per second per degree Celsius. Could I just say per meter squared? Per meter squared, sure. Oh my god. So when it's 1 meter squared of this substance per 1 degree Celsius, how many grams would we convert per second to the relevant products? A billion. I don't know. Let's calculate it. Let's say we want like a gram per second at like the average burning temperature. So let's say it's 400 degrees Celsius. Per 1 meter squared. So we want 1 gram per meter squared at 400 degrees Celsius per second. So I guess it would be 1 divided by 400. Yeah. We'll add that here. Although, again, we might have to, like, change that and stuff. Okay, do we have everything we need now? Kinda. We still need to determine how much of the oxygen is actually touching the surface, if it's actually combusting or not. That's another thing. So, temperature is applied for the entire volume. So we can do that as a check. I guess we could spontaneously ignite the entire object. I don't know if it spontaneously ignites. Thank you for the hydrate redstone. I don't know if you just sent that now or if you sent it before. I just noticed it now. No more sparkling ice. Yeah, so I guess we could say, well, how are we going to determine the temperature of the fuel? Wouldn't it also be affected by the temperature of the oxygen? What's up, Redstone? I guess we could use the temperature of the fuel. Oh, jeez. No good way to simulate this. Redstone, it's been physics. Like, that is the thing we're working on right now, and it's going to be like that for probably at least a couple more weeks. I might take intermittent breaks, but this is the chemistry engine. We're here. This is it. This is probably going to be the most complicated part of the entire game. This is the moment. I say complicated, but we're churning through all the different steps. But oh my god, there's a lot of stuff we have to put in. But you already have to do like 20 years of labor to finish a single game anyways. So I mean, I'm not really deterred by the potential of workload. Okay, so wood and oxygen. Cool. If pairs.products.has ID product. Okay. Now we can actually start checking things here. If context. Oh no. Oh shit. Get element name. Fuel. Oh, okay. Fuel. If fuel dot temperature. That's okay. Dot component dot temperature. Should we do everything through reactants maybe when we're actually checking for reactions? I guess we don't have to. The the reactants really just store the relationships between different components. That's basically what reactants are. So we have applied force and pressure and stuff like that. But don't components also have pressure? Okay. I don't know. I don't know what it's doing. Basically, it's like data we want to cache. We want to calculate it ahead of time, and then we want to cache it and then use it somehow or something. It might be completely redundant. I don't know. Force, pressure. We'll hold on to it for now. Because again, it represents the bridge between these things. Probably going to be useful to have that in our data structure. Where the hell? Okay. Go over here. If fuel.component.temperature is greater than product dot something. It's the combustion pair. That's what it is. Pairs dot products dot get ID. Pairs dot products. What the hell? Wait. We want to store that in here. Question product.new. I guess we could move the arguments over there as well, since we're already using the constructor. Okay, if fuel.component.temperature is greater than product dot auto ignition ratio times something times it's coming together. Fuel.component. No, that's the oxidizer. Oh my god. Oxidizer dot component dot density, but we have to get density. We can't just use density. If fuel dot component dot temperature is greater than, yep, okay. Then here we can say is combusting. I might want to make another function. I don't know. If fuel dot component dot temperature is greater than, whoa. Then we actually have to convert some of this, right? And we want to do that per mass, per something. And it would release, if it doesn't release, if it doesn't have a parent system, it's going to release into, I guess, the local, we could use the local atmosphere system, or just release it into the atmosphere, or turn it into like a gas. Yeah, where are we storing this stuff? Every component is going to have a parent system, right? Yeah. So we just release it into the same system. This is why we made systems. And if a barrel becomes part gas, if a barrel becomes part ash, then I guess after 10% of it becomes ash, then the barrel will release all of its inner contents defined at some speed that is related to changes in the density. What am I saying? Oh my god. And then after a certain point, it'll just destroy the barrel. But then we can't keep converting things. So I don't know if we'll just destroy the barrel. Like, I don't know if it's just gonna go poof. We want all of it to slowly convert to something else, and then once it turns into a gas, dissipates into the atmosphere, then we can Q-free it. Okay? I'm comfortable Q-freeing it at that point. We don't have to have the ash come back down and like, oh, it's going to affect the plants, which could affect your experience gain. No. We can delete it at that point. Ash goes into the air at high temperatures. I don't even know if it's like, if that's how it works in real life, if it gets converted to, constituent molecules like soot. But I don't know if the soot was a converted element, or yeah, it's just borrowing the electrons. Where the hell does the soot come from? Byproducts of fire. It also produces... Why do fires produce water? It's stealing its electrons, right? Carbon dioxide and why? It's just taking the electrons. Wait, no, doesn't it also do like conversions? Okay. The carbon dioxide in the water is going to be approximated in our system as ash. Boom. Boom. Okay, if fuel dye component temperature is greater than product auto ignition ratio, so at this point we would start converting and releasing energy. That's what we do. However, I know this is becoming a lengthy process, but I think I'm going to have to save that for tomorrow's stream. This is a lot. There's a lot of stuff to do. We've only been going for an hour and a half, and I could do more, but no. I will not. I refuse. So, I'm probably going to end it here. We've moved the process. This is a very slow moving process, for sure. Yeah, I'm going to end the stream here, so thank you everyone who stopped in. Thank you, Dino. Thank you, Antonio. And thank you, Redstone. I will be live tomorrow. And we can get back into this shit then. It's going to be fantastic. Having so much fun. It's, you know, it's interesting to do, I suppose. If we can actually get this into the game, though, like, imagine how all of this stuff, like, you can see the complexity of stuff that I'm adding into the game right now. Imagine, like, the impacts that's going to have on gameplay, like how the players would interact with these systems. That's a pretty cool thought. That keeps me going. It's those kinds of thoughts that keep me going, okay? I'm going to use that as my own fuel. My own chemical fuel. To continue with this. But yeah, I'm going to end here. So thanks again, everyone. I will see you all tomorrow. We won't have to wait long. And yeah, we'll get it done. We'll get more of it done. All right. Take care, everyone. See you tomorrow.